Welcome back to Montferrat, or I should say the Holy Roman Empire, for what will likely be the final episode. We're just waiting for the Imperial Authority to come in, and then we will unify the Empire. It's going to take a little bit. I don't remember it being so expensive to unify the Empire. It's going to cost 90 Imperial Authority to fully unify the place, but we'll see about that. Last time I did test adding London to the HRE and then returning it to England to get them to join the HRE. So I think we're going to do that right now. England doesn't actually hate us that much despite us bullying them incessantly. So I don't think it'd be very difficult to integrate them as a HRE member even after we return London. Our shared border is what's really upsetting them. So if we say release Southern England as fiefdoms or vassals, that would solve that issue. And I was also thinking, could we go around and add other people to the HRE? Say Poland, say Denmark? All we would need to do is take their capital, or whatever there is their capital. For some reason, Denmark doesn't have their capital in Copenhagen. But if we take their capitals, add them to the HRE, then just return the land, the same with England, we may be able to just force a bunch of people into the HRE. We do have access to the imperialism CB now because we're in this age, so it's quite easy for us to get CBs on nations and attack them. We'll have to keep an eye on our antagonism, of course. There's one nation we won't be having join the HRE, and that is, of course, Spain. They hate us a little too much, so we'll see about just destroying them. But I would definitely like to expand the HRE and add as many people as we can to it before we finally unify it. In fact, let me return London to England right now, or I need to wait until August the 9th. There we go. Let's now sell London to England. I guess we'll take as much money as we can from them. Yeah, that's a good amount of ducats. Now let's watch. In my test, they immediately returned it to London as their capital. In fact, it was a little too fast. I don't think they spent any stability. Let's watch. They have 34 stability now. If we just wait. Yep, their capital immediately moved to London at the end of the month. They didn't spend stability, so there must be some sort of mechanic that just brings their capital back to the location that is scripted to be their capital, I guess. But yes, Britain is now a member of the HRE, or it should be, because their capital is in London, which is in, yep, there we can see they've joined the Holy Roman Empire. Another righteous member of the empire is born. How absolutely devilish. We don't really need them to add their land to the HRE, but it's definitely nice. So let's see if we can do the same thing with Denmark and Poland. Maybe even Russia. Let's not get too greedy, right? The goal is to unify the HRE, not pull all of Europe into the HRE. But maybe it should be. Let's transport our army that we have in Britain back to the continent. There's no real reason to leave them over there now. I'm not going to attack Britain any further. After all, Britain is on side. I'd love to release Cornwall here, but Cornwall has been destroyed, unfortunately, so we'll have to release some custom subjects. I guess we'll release a bunch of fiefdoms. We could just give them independence, as they themselves are HRE members, and I suppose we don't really care if Britain does eat them. Ah, there goes our Holy Roman Emperor again. Another one takes the throne. I was thinking of a way of kind of exploiting our Holy Roman Emperor's ages so that they can die as fast as possible. If we switched over from our, what was it? The legal code to this matrilineal legal code, which gives us access to a new succession law where people inherit based on their age mainly, that being people gain score per years of age. The problem with this is women can inherit, but since there's an increase to score from being a general or admiral, we could kind of exploit it as long as there aren't women that are too good, right? Because the skill of the characters does come into play. But we could use this or something like this. I haven't tested it to ensure that our rulers are as old as possible so they die as fast as possible. Definitely something to think about for my eventual Austria run. Alright, we have completed the arduous task of going around and making sure that every single, all 200 or so members of the HRE have a positive relationship with us. You can see that there's still a few who don't, but I have a plan for them. We're going to lose intentionally 2 of our hegemonies. We can't lose economic hegemony, as you can see. We're a little too rich. Same with cultural hegemony, but we can easily lose the diplomatic hegemonies and the military hegemony. If I disband 2 of my armies, we'll lose the military hegemony. So let's disband 1, 2. The Lithuanians should now take military hegemony status from us. and we'll now cut our diplomatic spending. Or do we even need to cut it? If we just stop improving our diplomatic reputation, we should lose the diplomatic hegemony as well. So now we just need to wait for both those to happen, and that will increase our relationship with everyone by 40, ensuring that we are liked enough that we can unify the HRE without much hassle. I will continue to go around and give money to each of the HRE members as I've been doing so, just in case. I do hope Paradox eventually reverses the "you're a hegemony, everyone hates you" modifier, because not only does it not make much sense, but it makes something like unifying the HRE, like I'm trying to do, a lot harder than it needs to be. There we go, we've lost diplomatic hegemony status, but it looks like we still have military hegemony status. Why? I'm not sure, but apparently we have to wait another year before we can lose it. I guess we'll continue to wait. Waiting costs us nothing after all. Although we do have casus bellis on nations now, so I'd like to start expanding the HRE if possible. Poland should be quite easy because their capital's in Krakow, so as long as things do work the way we think they do, it should be very simple to just return Krakow to them and have them join the HRE once we add it to the HRE. I do have a feeling things won't be as easy as with England though. The English are a somewhat servile people, so bringing them in isn't very difficult at all. For whatever reason, it keeps seeming like we stop losing it seems like we stop being able to lose the military hegemony. Maybe I should disband another army just to be sure. I've only got 3 though, and they're kind of all in locations where I want them to be. I suppose it doesn't really matter. We do have France as an ally. Is Bohemia an ally? Not yet. Well, really it's because they would have to pay to maintain. Let's see if we can't bring around the last few nations just by increasing relationships. We don't want to fully disband our military after all. For a lot of these nations, their opinion just hasn't updated to take into account the fact that we have lost a hegemony. So a lot of them, they look like they're in the -20s, but they're actually in like just -1 or -2 territory, as we can see there when we increase it. We just had another crash, but ironically it did help because it updated everyone's opinion of us. So we can see there's only a few nations we need to get over the line. All right, I think we're there. We're over the line, and that's the only place we need to be. Let's now revoke the privilege, the first of 2 policies we need to pass to unify the HRE. It'd be funny, as I said previously, if I didn't actually need to do this. Perhaps not funny, haha, but you know, funny. We'll follow in the footsteps of one SpongeBob SquarePants and do actually nothing while we wait to see if anyone leaves the HRE after this affair. I'm going to keep improving relationships with people just in case and giving them free money, just in case. We really don't want to see a situation where someone dips down just for a moment and then leaves the HRE or something like that. And there we go, the privilege revoked. In the year of our Lord, 1757, the Supreme Augustus Holy Roman Emperor, Manuel Palaiologos Romanum Imperator, crowned by God, has again convened the estates of the Holy Roman Empire. The Imperial Diet has agreed to a motion to centralize foreign policy and warfare by having all member states sign away their autonomy to the Holy Roman Emperor. Anyone who doesn't agree to this will leave, and we will gain a core on them. So let's do it. Did anyone leave? I don't think so. One of the ways to check is we could look and see if we have cores on somebody. Ooh, Upper Bavaria left. Maybe it's because they're in a union? It also looks like the Frisian Freedom left as well, but we had very high relationships with them. Maybe it did change and it's not based on our relationships now. Dithmarschen left as well. How odd. How odd. I could check in the game files, but I'm refusing to do so as it would mean all of my work would be wasted. But I suppose that's good to know. Since we do have cores on these guys, we could just conquer them. It would be fairly easy to do so. So I think we'll think about doing that. Let's begin building spy networks. We can't go for Upper Bavaria, obviously. Well, I mean, maybe we could. They're in a union who with? Lower Bavaria. Not surprising. Which I suppose wouldn't be a big deal if they got pulled in. Let's begin building a spy network. We now just need to wait for our imperial authority to tick up to 90, and then we can fully unify the HRE. Unfortunately, passing that law did upset a lot of people, as it counts as a law that unifies the empire. Maybe that's what led to those guys leaving. It could be. But I feel like I had pretty high relationships with them, and there were people that I had lower relationships with who didn't leave for whatever reason. Ah well, we won't think too hard about it. Instead, we're going to attack Tunis. Hungary's actually in this war because they're a co-belligerent, because they're part of the coalition against us, so we'll see about annexing them fully. We are using the imperialism CB now, which is better than the Restore Roman Borders CB, so we should be able to take large swathes of land. There goes Hungary. Will bring their long and rather toxic relationship with us to a close. We'll be glad to see the back of them. Even though we're still at war with Tunis and Morocco, we're going to attack Spain now. Spain hasn't really been a big deal or a threat to us for a very long time, so there's no reason not to go on the offensive against them. We'd like to remove them from the map if possible. I may need to be a little careful with my antagonism, as I'm sure you can guess. We could try and force Spain into the HRE, but it's probably not worth it. They hate us a little too much due to our antagonism. As such, we'll spare them the pleasure of joining our most holy organization. Right, there goes Morocco. We're just going to take this much land. We could take a lot more, but I'm trying to stay within ye old Roman borders, right? I guess we will take some maps from them as well. And with that, we should be able to just finish off Tunis now. Let's take a look at those Roman borders I was mentioning. These are the Roman borders, or at least what the game considers Rome. So we'll just take exactly what we need. We'll leave them with the rest. I guess we'll force them to release some of the nations they have as vassals. No reason to let the Tunisians keep a lot of their territory. There, Roman rule has returned to Africa, I think, in its entirety. I don't think there's any part of Africa that is outside of our rule now. No, I'm not seeing it. Ooh, no, these are deserts, so they don't count, I swear. So the only parts of Rome we need to take now are the European parts, which we should just gain for free, essentially, when we unify the HRE. Gonna move my army back to Europe so we can start thinking about attacking the Polish and trying to force them into the HRE. We've entered into the colonial revolution, so a lot of colonies are rebelling against their leaders, meaning we're getting pulled into quite a few wars by other members of the HRE who are being attacked by their colonies. There's not much reason for us not to join, so we'll of course join. Not that we'll get actually involved though, of course. It's simply nothing to do with us really, the colonial affairs. What's really funny is taking part in these wars to defend the HRE against rebelling vassals gives us a little bit of imperial authority. We can say we gain 0.5 for each of them, and to add on to that, we gain a lot of relations with the members of the empire because you get imperial defense for coming to the defense of the empire against the people attacking it. Maybe this is the true tech. Just wait for the end of the game and bring everyone into the HRE and then have everyone in the HRE love you for protecting the empire from those vile colonists. We're still at war with Spain, but I don't see a reason to slow down. We're going to hit Poland and try and, as we've discussed before, take their capital. So if we take Krakow and return it to them, that should be the city we need to ensure they join the HRE. It's hard to know though. It's definitely not something we can just know instinctively, or at least I feel like I can't know instinctively if things will work. But we'll give it a try, right? We'll give it a try. As I said, I don't think it will be as easy as it was with England, but there's no reason not to try. We'd love to bring as many people into the HRE as possible after all. Right, we've beaten up the Polish. We're just going to take Krakow. For some reason they have some Roman slaves, so I guess we'll ask them to return those too. But as I said, we will just take Krakow. We'll very quickly core it because it's just a single location, and then we'll add it to the HRE, and then we'll return it. If things do work, like I think they do, or how they looked like they did, they will then immediately move their capital back to Krakow and join the HRE. It almost doesn't sound or feel believable, but we'll see. I do feel like maybe England was just a fluke based on the fact that England really wants to keep its capital in London at all times. So we'll see if the situation is repeated in Krakow. I won't be holding my breath, honestly. Speaking of holding my breath, Spain. I think we're going to full annex them. Who will take offence? Mainly Spain. Tunis, Morocco, France won't like it. France is going to take a bit of offence, but from us defending the HRE and increasing our relationships with them, I think we'll be totally fine. I'm not sure I want to annex Spain because it's going to give me all of their unruly colonists, but we're going to do it anyway. Goodbye, Spain. Well, actually, is there anything else we could demand from them? No, it doesn't like it. Let's just annex them, remove them from the world. We have now gained all of the Spanish colonies. Look at that big Roman Empire. We've done a lot of hard work colonizing, clearly. In fact, there are some places we could colonize. Looks like over in Alaska, Siberia. So I guess let's colonize. In fact, let's tell the AI to colonize for me. It's not something I really want to personally manage, and I guess we'll just click all the ones that are currently there. And if any other colonizable places come up, we'll trust the AI will do it for us. Right, Krakow is now in the HRE. Problem is, because of all these wars we're in, we can't actually hand out the location. We kind of need to wait for these wars to end, but they're kind of never ending. So what we might do is just separate peace if we can. Hopefully it doesn't negatively impact us for abandoning the war or something like that. All right, quickly, while there's a gap in the infinite wars we keep getting called into, let's sell Krakow back to Poland. It is a member of the HRE. Let's see if they move their capital there. I feel like, oh, they did. They did move their capital there. I guess that means Poland is now in the HRE. We did it, boys. Maybe it is just that simple. Let's quickly unify the HRE now. There's no reason, I think, to delay. Everyone loves us, or at least they should love us, because of all the protection we've been giving the HRE. Poland's the most recent member who doesn't really like us. They don't like us because we declared war. Apparently because we enforced peace. We did enforce peace on someone that was attacking Poland at one point, where Poland was full occupied, but I'm not sure that justifies them disliking us. But either way, let's unify the HRE. I'll be curious to see if anyone refuses. We still do have a few people who aren't part of the HRE that I have ignored, like Lower Bavaria and Frisian Freedom. Dithmarschen, though, did rejoin. Luckily, Britain did come over and take a bit of land from these guys, but I held off conquering them just because I was unsure about the antagonism, and there'll be nothing stopping us just conquering them after we unify the HRE, right? So I will be curious. Will anyone leave? I don't know. I like to think not, but as usual, these things are out of our hand. Oh, I forgot Denmark. We were going to try and pull them in as well, but, you know, too late now. We're already on the unification path. There's probably not enough time to take their capital, core it, and then return it, especially with all the wars. Not just I keep getting called into, that's the problem. The other nations also keep getting called into wars against their own vassals, and I can't return territory to a nation who is at war. Sad, I know. So it's a little hard to actually enact my strategy of returning land to these to get them to join the HRE. I do think there's a lot of potential, though, for this strategy. We could really balloon the HRE in size and avoid the old, you know, country being too big or being too high ranked to join the HRE modifiers by just forcing them in. All right, it's about to happen, I think. We're a few days off. I'm actually going to take a screenshot right now of the current HRE so that I can enjoy it once it's unified. And there we go. In the year of our Lord 1768, the most supreme Augustus Holy Roman Emperor Philippus III Parallelogos Romanorum Imperator, crowned by God, has again convened the estates of the Holy Roman Empire. The imperial diet has agreed to a notion to unify the disparate states of the empire into a nation state and recrown the Holy Roman Emperor as its hereditary ruler. Claim the crown. We will form the Holy Roman Empire. We'll gain the modifier Rome Reborn, which gives us a bunch of nice modifiers. We'll also enact the Holy Imperial Monarchy. Well now. Well. And there we go. The Holy Roman Empire, one and indivisible. Except for these few people that declared their independence. We can clean them up though. We can see our economy immediately kind of flatlines. And for some reason, every time I scroll down to look at my economy, the game crashes. So I'm going to try and avoid doing that. It looks like we can hang around the top bit here without any problems. But scrolling down kills us. So let's not scroll down. First of all, let's just stop paying for all these. We should demolish hundreds of these forts. It's going to be a little, you know, a little tiresome to demolish the hundreds of forts. Too bad there's no mass delete button, right? There's a mass build, but no mass unbuild. I don't think I've got the stamina to go through and delete all of them. We can also see we've gained a bunch of rebellious vassals. These are likely the colonized, well, I would say these are likely the colonial nations, but for some reason they're just vassals. That's odd. For some reason it looks like all of the colonial nations switched over to being vassals instead of being colonial subjects, which makes them very strong, or at least they consider themselves very strong compared to us. I'm not sure I agree with their assessment, right? But let's let time pass little. Our economy may fix itself. Yep, looks like it did just that. Just had to wait for the income to come in from the estates. We'll have to work on our control, obviously. To be fair, though, it's actually not too bad, our control, but it's probably worth spreading our local governors much further afield than they were currently. Let's demolish the ones we have because they're all in the Balkans. We'll throw one down in Cairo. Then I guess we'll throw one down in Paris. And I guess we have to do one in Spain, right? It wouldn't be fair. I guess Toledo or Madrid. I'd say Toledo. We won't put one down in Italy because we have access to the special, or do we? Have we lost access to the special one we get for winning the Italian wars? I'm not seeing it. Did it vanish? No, it's right here. It does look like it got deleted though, but let's rebuild it. I guess we'll put it in Rome. It's the most sensible place, right? For our last local governor, I guess somewhere in Germany probably be fair, right? Somewhere central-like, maybe. I'm not sure it really matters at this point, right? Like, it really doesn't matter. I guess we'll throw it down in Brandenburg then. It is the somewhat historical capital, and then we'll put our local governor down in London. Perfect. The empire's control will spread. All right, we need to decide what we do with all of these vassals. There's far too many of them to keep them loyal. One thing we could do, I guess, is we could sell them to the colonial nations we have in the regions. They might have an easier time managing them. Maybe not, though. You know what? I'm just going to release all of them, I think. It's probably just not worth keeping these guys around, especially because of the age we're in as well. If they were colonial nations, I wouldn't be able to release them. And I might consider trying to keep them around because colonial nations are quite fun, or at least they should be. They might not be quite fun in the current version, but they probably should be fun at some point. The idea of them's fun, I guess. I'm not sure which nation it was that decided to have a colonial nation for each individual province here. Can we look at the culture of them? These are Czech colonies. So the one we have to blame, actually there's a Polish one there. Maybe these are the Polish and Bohemian colonies. Looks like it, but there's so many of them in such a small area. I guess I'll put the blame on Poland and Bohemia. How could they do this? All right, we've managed to pacify our many vassals. We released a bunch of them. We've only got 99 left. We had close to 200. I can't quite remember. I also made a bunch of armies just to help pacify them. One thing you'll notice is that my stability got very low. That's because I received an event to restore the Pope to Rome. You may remember a long time ago we killed the Pope, and he actually never came back. That's right, the throne of St. Peter has been empty for more than 100 years. For some reason, the papal state never respawned elsewhere in the world. And of course, I'm not willing to give Rome back. We actually never got the event to restore Rome until just now, probably because we stopped being the Roman Empire. I'm guessing the Roman Empire is exempt from the event that lets you return Rome to the papal state, which does make sense. I'd love to go down in my spending list and actually increase my spending on stability, but of course if I do that, the game crashes, so that's not an option. One of the final things I do want to do before we call it though is I'd like to unify my culture group. We are of course the Greek culture, and we want to become the Roman culture. We could also switch over back to orthodoxy. In fact, we could do it right now. Orthodoxy is kind of a dead religion. Nobody's really in the religion at this point. Only 11% of our population is, but we'll switch over anyway. Then once we gain a bit of religious influence, we can mend the schism. Wouldn't that be nice? And there we go, we'll restore Rome's primacy. This will actually make Rome our capital, which is not something I want. Maybe I should have thought about that before I did it, but too late now. Then we'll mend the schism. There is but one Christian church. Not that there's many Catholics left. Are there actually any Catholic nations? Oh, well, we can see the list here. There's 186, so not as few as I might thought. Most of them are in the colonies, though. Europe is kind of devoid of Catholics now. And once we destroy this little nation here that's in the center, it'll be pretty devoid. It'll be nearly entirely devoid. And there we go, our long-cherished wish. Roman culture is back. We've unified the Roman culture group, which means we've absorbed all the pops that are of that culture that are within our nation. There's still quite a few Greeks roaming around. Looks like they're in the colonies, though. The majority of people have switched over to the Roman culture, of which there are 23 million of us. Perfect. We also cleaned up the few guys in Europe that were hanging around, making things difficult. I think we're going to call it here. We've pretty much achieved our goal. There's a few achievements I wanted to pick up. Let me actually check. I'm not seeing them in the list here. Did I already get them without noticing? For some reason I can't get... Oh, is it achievement cannot be achieved in the campaign? But why? I'm meeting all the criteria. That's odd. For this one, it makes sense because I have to be Rome. It's a pity because I was all set to get this one. I even had a high enough Latinus score. It's just a bit of territory that France had along the Mediterranean that I could have taken, I guess, and a few Italian nations. Not sure about this one, though. Not sure why we're not eligible for this one. It could be because we're just not Rome anymore, making us ineligible, and of course we can't switch back to being Rome. One final thing we could do to get another achievement is switch over to the Italian culture group, just to get this one since our innovative score is at 100%, and we of course control the center of the Renaissance. We didn't actually end up getting this Holy Roman Emperor one because I didn't pass the Perpetual Diet. I think. But oh well, I could also get the What a Great Guy one. We just need to take a few locations in these 3 regions. Wouldn't be too difficult, but I think I might do that on my own time. Let's go around and take a little look at things now then. I have to be a little careful. I can't really look at my economy without crashing the game. As long as I stay on the upside, we should be fine. For now, the very low stability we have has crashed the amount of money that the nobles pay us. We still get more than enough to sustain our nation though. It's a pity we weren't able to reach the coveted 100% tax rate with them. We're very close. If we increased our crown power just a little bit, we would be at that 100%. We could easily switch out one of these government reforms for something that gives crown power that would probably get us over the line. Royal decree, for example, for that 10%. Or we could revoke a privilege from them. It's very cheap to revoke privileges from them now because of how high our communalism is and how little power they have. Also, our crown power and absolutionism. But at the same time, we kind of need them to have privileges so that they actually are willing to pay us tax, right? But if we look at our economic history, if I can find it, I believe, yeah, here, we can see we started off pretty poor and we remained poor for quite a while. At the start, we just had our Montferrat territory, which I didn't invest in at all. I just saved money for our eventual move to Constantinople. And you can kind of see when we make the move because our economy climbs into the hundreds. It took us a while to core Constantinople and the surrounding area though. So I think I again held off investing too heavily. But then as I core the area and I also conquer Bulgaria, Serbia, Romania, and I start forming those nations, then I eventually become Byzantium. I'm not sure when exactly, but the economy definitely just starts picking up around the 15th century. And then it's really only upward from there. At the start of the 15th century, our tax base was 542 ducats, and then at the end, it was 3,000. And from there, it really was only upwards. We can see this spike in income. This was when we formed the HRE. As you can see, it just climbed into the stratosphere. I can barely look at it. Too high. We're the undisputed hegemony of all the hegemonies, as you can imagine. We never really were rivaled on the economic hegemony after a point. I'm surprised the Ashikaga shogunate was so high on the hegemony score. We can see they've not really expanded outside Japan, and they don't even fully control Japan. There are a few daimyo hanging around, it looks like. They did take a bit of territory in Manchuria, but that's it. They didn't colonize or anything, at least I don't think so. I don't see any colonies belonging to them. So they were very much just built tool, I suppose we'd call it. Speaking of building tool, we can kind of see a shadowy black Korea here. Let me just switch over to the world map mode. There, see, there we go. So we can see there's a big Korea here that expanded. Oh, Yuan is still alive. The Yuan dynasty survived it all. And for whatever reason, China failed to achieve high status. We can see we've got Great Shaojing here, which is the Chinese dynasty. We can tell they're the leader of the Middle Kingdom because they have great in their name. Also nice to see the Jadari flag getting some representation. I really didn't expect to see Jeddah here in EU5, but it is what it is. But it looks like the Chinese had just had a hard time of really dominating for whatever reason. They really shouldn't. I mean, look how many levies they have. 1.5 million levies. Compare that to Korea with their 200,000 and Vietnam with their 100,000. It's really surprising that the Chinese didn't really expand. They could, there was nothing really stopping them. It's just odd. And their economy didn't really grow together with that. For example, they're at 120,000 base tax. If they just ate the Koreans and the Vietnamese, that would basically double their tax base, as long as they were able to get control, obviously. Also shout out to West Taiwan here, acknowledging the fact that China is, after all, just East Taiwan. And then we can also see one of the stranger winners, the Kashmir, has ballooned quite large and expanded quite a lot, making it one of the stronger powers in Central Asia, together with Georgia. Timur's empire is still around, but it's pretty fractured and not really existent. Who's the strongest of the Indian nations? They look pretty comparable in strength. I guess this one, they've got 1 million men. The others around them are pretty close though, 700,000, nearly 700,000. This one's 700,000. Then there are some small ones with only 200, 300,000. It probably wouldn't take much to just unify India, I think. Pretty bloody wars there would have to be though, considering the very high population. The Mamluks still hanging around in Arabia are very much reduced from their full heights. It's lovely to see. They're even weaker than Yemen. Yemen is the undisputed power in Arabia at the moment. Outside of that, it's always nice to see Kurdistan on the map. I'm not sure who formed them, but they were formed. I feel like Kurdistan may have got destroyed a few times as well. I feel like I did release them at one point. Let me actually check the history of Kurdistan's dynasty. I feel like it might have been formed by the Ayyubids, actually. Maybe not. Maybe that's just a dream on my part. Yes, I guess it wasn't formed by the Ayyubids. That's sad. Then what's going on in Africa? Kilwa's, of course, there. Then we've got the Sultanate of Somalia doing quite well, and the Sultanate of Nubia. And Sokoto also hanging around. Sokoto is pretty strong. They've got 200,000 regulars. Does that make them the strongest nation in Africa? I think it might do. We also have the Kingdom of Old Manding as well, who I believe was a colony of somebody. For whatever reason, they use the Austrian flag. Really not sure what's going on with this nation, though. I wish I could do that thing we could in EU4, where we can go back in the timeline and see what exactly happened. Speaking of what exactly happened, Naples still going strong. Despite the fall of their European territories, they're still hanging out in Madagascar. Still Neapolitan. Have they actually converted Madagascar to Neapolitan? Yeah, it does look like they have. All of their territory is fully Neapolitan. It's nice to see them eking out an existence there. America is, what can I say? It's America. We've even got some Moroccan colonies over here, actually. There's also the nations we've released who were colonies, but we just threw them out because they were too rebellious. Nice to see the natives are hanging around, though. I feel like they shouldn't be, though, right? We shouldn't have these massive native nations really existing at all. They really should just get destroyed by the colonizers, which is unfortunately what's largely happened to the Incas. There are a few Incan nations hanging around, though, I guess. You love to see it. Australia's got divided up between us and Denmark. Our colony of New South Wales is here in Australia, and they are a Greek colony. This is a colony we actually set up and not one we inherited or stole. We can even see there's some colonists here belonging to the Persian nation. Not sure we like to see it, but it's there. Is there anything of note in the world to look at else? I'm not sure. Well, Russia formed. It's rare to see it. Who formed Russia? I can't quite remember. It looks like it was Muscovy here, just based on their first ruler. We can kind of see that it was the Muscovites that formed them. So it's lovely to see it. Nice to see Russia actually come into existence. Though Novgorod also still exists, the Republic as it is, and of course we then got the Ruthenian Tsardom between them. 3 Slavic nations really that exist, and then I guess there's this Grand Principality here, who's also hanging around. Really, we should just eat them. They're kind of over my territorial limits though, since they are in Ruthenia. Speaking of Ruthenia, the Livonian Order is still hanging out, though it looks like they've reformed and just become Livonia now. They were the Livonian Order when we gained them as a vassal. We could integrate them now. We couldn't integrate them before because, there was a timer. We had to wait down after integrating them. Is there anything else you want to go over? Let's go over cultures a bit. As you can imagine, Roman is our largest culture, even eclipsing the Egyptian and French, who there's always a lot of them, especially the Egyptians. One of the problems you can see that we have immediately after forming Roman culture is we lost all our cultural acceptance of the various pops. So we've gone massively over our cultural capacity limit. Not that it really matters at this point, right? I definitely would have liked to see Romans spread more, and I guess it is. I mean, if we look, we can see there's a lot of Roman pops around. They're just not the majority in a lot of territory. All we'd really need to do is accept cultures in these places so that we can gain cores on them, and then we'd end up converting quite quickly because of all the modifiers we have to our conversion rate, scaling with control obviously. So I think if we just waited and got our control up and accepted all the cultures in Europe, we'd actually convert very fast. Speaking of control, our control's quite high. It could be higher. The main thing holding us back is that we've only just got railways, and I don't think we fully railwayed up. The moment I got railways, I spent 6 million gold, I think, to build one in every single location to connect everywhere to Constantinople. We can see the railways, they're pretty spread. They're the purple here. Not fully though. In fact, for whatever reason, the railways that are closer to Constantinople seem to be being built last. There's likely a lot of stalling though because I've ordered so many, which isn't surprising, and they do require steel. I personally haven't built a building in a good 100 years, so if I wanted to speed up railway production, I'd probably need to spam a few steel mills. But once those railways would be finished, we can see the cost of traveling through locations is just a single point. It's a single proximity cost. which is then further reduced by our proximity efficiency. So it's very quick and easy to move through land with those modifiers I was talking about previously that stack on railways, making them even better. Because railways ordinarily take off 35 from proximity cost, but due to the extra 4 we get from those two advances, they're taken off 39. It's beautiful, it really is. When it comes to religion, we've only just converted to orthodoxy, and you may remember when I did it a few years ago, they were only 0.11, I think, of our population. Well, they've ballooned pretty rapidly up to nearly 20% of the population at 40 million. I think it'd be pretty fast for us to convert all of our territory over to orthodox. We can see here the conversion rate, even in territory that's quite low on control. Let's find somewhere low on control, actually. This land we just took from Upper Bavaria, or Lower Bavaria even. We can see even the territory next to these guys, where we have very low control. They're still converting around 30 people a month, or maybe 16 in this location. To be fair, the 3 theologists we have in our government are helping in that regard. But I think it'd be pretty quick just to bring the Catholic world round to our way of thinking, which we probably should do. I mean, as I said, there hasn't been a pope in more than 100 years, right? When it comes to our pops, they're doing okay, I guess. Literacy isn't quite as high as I'd like it to be, at only nearly 70% overall. To be fair, there's a lot of pops who, do have a maximum literacy rate of 100%, but they just haven't ticked up to it. I think our maximum literacy is above 100% at this point, just looking at all the modifiers. So really every pop in our nation should eventually reach 100% literacy. It really is just a matter of waiting for them to all tick up, which unfortunately is not something we can speed up. I do feel like maybe there should be some extra modifiers to speed of literacy gain. With the current modifiers, you basically gain 0.24% in a year, meaning it takes 10 years to gain 2% and 100 years to gain 20, if I'm reading these numbers right, which doesn't really sound right. Maybe I'm misreading the numbers from playing this game for too long. Entirely possible. When it comes to government reforms, I don't think there's anything specifically unique to say. We had diplomatic traditions for most of the game, just for the extra diplomatic reputation, and then we have the Byzantine reforms. There are a few other reforms we use though. For example, I use this barony rule one that I quite like. It increases max control in all rural locations by 5, which isn't that amazing. It does increase the amount of nobles in rural locations though, which of course drives up demand. It also gives us the strength and ties interaction with our subjects. This is basically just another support loyalist. It does the same thing of adding 20 loyalty, but it also increases the efficiency of their cabinet. I had it preemptively in case my vassals became very rebellious, but then they didn't end up becoming very rebellious. Then we have this next government reform, which is really good because it adds this cabinet interaction, which increases control and max control in a location, a lot like the normal increased control actions, but it also increases the noble satisfaction of the nobles, obviously, making it a bit of a double whammy because we get control, obviously. And this does stack with the other modifiers. For example, we could use increase area control, increase province control together with the increased control from this action to really just stack control in a location if we really wanted to. And then we get that extra little bit of estate satisfaction for the nobles, which helps them pay tax too. Next, we use on the provincial taxation system. It does reduce crown power by 10%, but it increases max tax by 5%. And I think that's a really easy trade-off to make. Crown power is kind of deceptive when it comes to how much tax you get from it. You can see we're getting 15% tax from crown power currently, and our crown power is 75%, which honestly is pretty high, but doesn't equal a very high tax rate. I definitely think the 5% maximum tax we get from that reform easily pays for itself, far more than the 10% crown power would. And then after that, we just have cultural recognition for the cultural capacity. We've also got mandatory bureaucratic education. Because our overall literacy rate seems to be above 100 though, we could definitely throw that out and exchange it for something else because it looks like we're at 105 literacy, so we could exchange that. Then of course we got the Holy Imperial Monarchy reform we got for becoming the HRE. And finally we had speed of integrations. I didn't really grab this with any real thought behind it. I just grabbed it the moment we became the Holy Roman Empire to try and pacify the vassals. Again, we could probably throw that out for something. I'd probably go for restricted worker unions for the extra production efficiency. Production efficiency is of course king. We could also grab some other things that increase our cultural capacity limit, especially because we're over now. We could grab the Bulgarian Tsardom reform, which you may remember that we gained access to a long time ago when we formed Bulgaria. How nice. Let's take a little look at our most wealthy locations. As I'm sure would surprise no one, Constantinople is our most valuable location. making 1,400 ducats. It hasn't even got all of its RGOs maxed, so it could definitely go above that. Also, I think I forgot to rebuild all of the unique buildings after my capital got forcibly moved to Rome. So we need to rebuild the central bank, the art academy, and actually it looks like that's it. I'm surprised there aren't more things that need to be rebuilt. Oh well. After Rome, it's now Salzburg, a new location in our realm, which is the most valuable location, making 500 ducats. It wasn't me that did this, it was whoever owned it before, which I think is Salzburg itself, yes. They were able to achieve that. Is there anyone really of note next? I guess there's Pest over here, capital of Hungary. As I mentioned, I haven't really been building much in the last 100 years or so our economy definitely isn't as high as it could be, but to be fair, does it need to be higher? I don't really think so. Surprisingly, Cairo is only worth 200 ducats at this point, despite having nearly 1 million population. I guess, as I said, I haven't built anything there, so I don't really know what's been going on there. It looks like they've got loads of marketplaces though, for whatever reason. How much pop does Constantinople have? Nearly 1.5 million. I stopped increasing it myself after it reached 1 million, so that extra 500,000 is completely on its own. Definitely nice to see. Can we see the most populated location in the world, or at least within our nation? Well, we can see within our nation at least. It's Constantinople, then followed by Cairo, Alexandria. Rome being 5th, actually rising to nearly 500,000 population. Nice to see. Is there anything else we want to go over? Maybe our armies? Once I reach the point where I could use this template, I've basically used it the whole game of 10, 10, 5, 5, 5. Probably not optimal, but it works for me. The combined arm bonus definitely increases the strength of the army quite a bit. And we didn't come across an AI we couldn't flatten it, except for that little bit of time we were fighting France and they were actually winning a few battles against us, if only because their units were of the next tier and ours weren't. So with all that said, I think we'll bring this campaign to a close. I am a little salty I didn't manage to get those achievements, because for whatever reason they can't be earned in this campaign. I guess I'll just seethe privately, and I think I'll go on and get the What a Great Guy achievement. I just need to take like 3 locations, one in South Asia, one in Southeast Asia, and one in Central Asia. It should be fairly quickly. The main thing that'll be holding us back is our stability, which is still very low. In fact, let's increase it right now, up to -40. But for now, I will thank you for watching this video and seeing this whole campaign through to completion. Do let me know what you think. Do let me know if you enjoyed this campaign. I do hope you did. As I mentioned last time, I think my next campaign is probably going to be in the East. It might not go all the way up to the end date like this, but I really want to do a Japanese campaign where we conquer China and Korea and take the Mandate of Heaven. Problem is, Japan's quite boring in its early stage. Like, I find early Japan with the clan system really boring because I feel like I'm having to wait like 50, 60 years until the actual game starts and you become a landed nation. But I suppose I'll have to suffer through that. I do eventually want to do a Trebizond campaign. Trebizond is the best Rome former after all. And I want to do my Roman Horde campaign, but maybe we'll leave that for later. For now, as I said, again, I'll thank you for watching and I'll perhaps see you next time.